My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Do not move past this message too quickly. Something has shifted in the unseen, something so unexpected that even the people closest to your soulmate would never have imagined it. A choice has been made. Not a passing thought. Not an emotional reaction that will disappear by morning. This is a decision that has been growing silently beneath the surface, hidden behind ordinary conversations, delayed replies, distant expressions, and moments when your soulmate seemed to be somewhere else entirely. Heaven has watched every stage of this choice forming, and now it involves you more deeply than you realize. You may have recently felt a strange change in the energy surrounding this connection. Perhaps you could not explain it. One moment you felt close to them, even without words, and the next moment you felt an unusual distance. You may have wondered whether they were forgetting you, replacing you, or trying to close a chapter that once meant everything. But the truth is not what your fear suggested. Their silence was not empty. Their distance was not without meaning. Behind that quietness, a powerful realization was taking place, and it forced them to look at their life in a way they had avoided for a long time. Stay until the end, because the choice they made did not come easily. It came after an internal battle that almost no one saw. They have been carrying two versions of their future inside them. One future looked safe, predictable, and acceptable to everyone around them. It required no difficult explanations. It allowed them to continue appearing calm, controlled, and unaffected. The other future was uncertain, emotionally honest, and impossible to enter without courage. That future carried your presence in it. For a long time, they tried to convince themselves that the safer path was the wiser one. They told themselves that strong feelings could be ignored, that timing mattered more than truth, and that some connections were meant to remain unfinished. They attempted to be practical. They tried to focus on obligations, expectations, and the opinions of people who did not understand what existed between you. But every time they imagined moving forward without acknowledging you, something inside them resisted. It was not loud at first. It appeared as a memory returning at an unexpected hour. It sounded like your voice replaying in their mind after a long and exhausting day. It felt like a sudden heaviness when someone mentioned love, commitment, or the future. They would be surrounded by others and still feel the absence of the one person they could not emotionally replace. They began to understand that avoiding you was not creating peace. It was only teaching them how painful it felt to live against their own heart. Do not skip, because this is where the hidden story begins to change. Your soulmate recently experienced a moment that exposed the truth they had been trying to bury. It may have appeared ordinary from the outside. Perhaps it happened during a conversation, while they were alone at night, while looking through an old message, or after someone asked them a question they were not prepared to answer. Yet in that moment, the walls they had built around their feelings weakened. Someone may have spoken about you without knowing the effect your name would have. Or perhaps they saw something that reminded them of the version of themselves they were when they felt connected to you. Suddenly, they could no longer pretend that the choice before them was only about romance. It was about identity. It was about whether they would continue living according to fear or finally become honest about what their soul had been trying to tell them. My child, your soulmate has been more affected by you than they have admitted. They may have acted composed. They may have behaved as though the connection did not carry the same weight for them. They may even have said things that made you question whether you imagined the depth between you. But beneath those outward reactions, they were observing everything. They remembered how you made them feel seen. They remembered the moments when your presence reached places within them that no one else had touched emotionally. They remembered the way you understood what they did not know how to explain. This frightened them. Not because your love was wrong, but because it was real enough to require change. Real connections do not simply comfort us. They reveal us. They expose the excuses we have used to remain small. They show us where we have settled, where we have hidden, and where we have accepted less than what our heart truly desires. Your soulmate began to see that choosing you would mean choosing honesty, and honesty would require them to disappoint certain expectations. There were voices around them, spoken and unspoken, encouraging them to remain where they were. Some people preferred the version of your soulmate who was easy to influence. Some benefited from their hesitation. Others believed they knew what was best for them, but they only understood the surface of their life. They did not see the private emptiness. They did not witness the nights when your soulmate lay awake asking why success, stability, or social approval still failed to bring them peace. Heaven witnessed those nights. The angels saw the moment they closed their eyes and silently wondered whether you had already moved on. They saw the fear that appeared when they imagined you giving your heart to someone who would not hesitate. They saw the regret forming when your soulmate realized that their silence may have caused you to believe you were not valued. And they saw something else, something that changed the direction of this entire story. Your soulmate began to understand that losing you would not simply mean losing a person. It would mean losing a chance to become the version of themselves they were meant to be. You awakened courage in them, even when they resisted it. You made them question the life they were building. You reflected a kind of emotional truth that could not be replaced by convenience. They suddenly saw that the connection was not asking them to abandon themselves. It was asking them to stop abandoning themselves. Something huge is waiting for you in this message, because the choice they made was not merely to think about you more often. It was not simply to watch from a distance or silently hope that fate would eventually repair everything. The choice was more serious than that. They decided that remaining passive was becoming more painful than taking a risk. This decision began quietly. They did not announce it to everyone. They did not ask for permission. In fact, there may be people around them who still believe they are following the old plan. Your soulmate has learned that speaking too early can invite interference, confusion, and unnecessary opinions. So they have kept this new direction close to their heart while preparing for what comes next. You may soon notice small signs before the full truth appears. A change in communication. A sudden attempt to reconnect. A question that seems casual but carries deeper meaning. A message typed, erased, rewritten, and finally sent. They may approach indirectly at first because the intensity of what they feel has made them careful. They are not only afraid of rejection. They are afraid that you will see how much power this connection has always held over their heart. There is also guilt within them. They know that you may have spent time questioning your worth because of their uncertainty. They understand that their mixed signals may have created confusion. They know that while they were struggling with their fears, you were left carrying unanswered questions. Part of their choice involves facing the consequences of that. They are beginning to realize that love cannot grow through silence alone. At some point, truth must be spoken. But before they speak, they are trying to understand what exactly they are prepared to offer. They do not want to return with empty words. Something within them is insisting that this time must be different. They are thinking beyond temporary emotion. They are considering what it would mean to build something stable, honest, and protected from outside pressure. This is where the choice becomes something no one saw coming. For months, perhaps longer, people may have assumed your soulmate would continue following the path chosen for them. They may have believed your soulmate would remain committed to an old situation, a familiar routine, or a future that looked respectable from the outside. They may have underestimated the emotional transformation happening within them. But your soulmate has started questioning everything they once accepted without resistance. They are looking at relationships differently. They are examining who truly supports them and who only supports the version of them that remains predictable. They are recognizing the difference between advice given from love and control disguised as concern. They are beginning to separate their own desires from the expectations they inherited. And my beloved child, your presence is at the center of this awakening. Not because you forced them. Not because you demanded anything. Your impact came from the truth of who you were with them. Even your absence became a mirror. When you stepped back, whether by choice or circumstance, they were forced to feel what life was like without your energy near them. They discovered that certain people could distract them, but no one could reproduce the emotional safety, intensity, and recognition they felt with you. They may have attempted to compare the connection. They may have wondered whether someone else could provide an easier path. Yet each comparison revealed something they did not expect. Ease without depth began to feel empty. Attention without understanding began to feel temporary. Conversations without emotional truth began to feel exhausting. They realized that what existed with you could not be measured by ordinary standards. Do not misunderstand this message. Heaven is not asking you to stop living or to chase someone who has not yet shown up honestly. You are being reminded of your value. The divine does not ask you to beg for what is meant to meet you with clarity. Your soulmate's choice must eventually become visible through action. Words may open the door, but consistency will reveal whether they are ready to walk through it. And this is precisely what they have been considering. They know that you are not the same person you were before. Pain has strengthened your discernment. Waiting has taught you to recognize the difference between potential and commitment. You may still carry love for them, but you are no longer willing to lose yourself inside uncertainty. Your soulmate senses this change. It has made the choice more urgent because they understand that the door may not remain open forever. There was a time when they believed they could delay indefinitely. They thought the connection would remain available whenever they felt prepared. They assumed your heart would continue waiting in the same place. But recently, something showed them that you are moving forward. Perhaps your energy changed. Perhaps you stopped reaching out. Perhaps you became calmer, more focused, or less emotionally reactive. They felt the difference, and it unsettled them. Your peace became the sign they could not ignore. When you stopped fighting for answers, they started hearing the questions within themselves more loudly. When you began choosing your own healing, they realized that they might actually lose access to the love they had taken for granted. This was not a punishment. It was divine balance. Sometimes heaven removes the noise so truth can finally be heard. Your soulmate then faced a question that changed everything: what will I regret more? The risk of choosing this connection, or the pain of never discovering what it could have become? The answer surprised them. They realized they could survive embarrassment. They could survive disapproval. They could survive having to explain themselves. But they were no longer certain they could peacefully carry the regret of letting you disappear without ever revealing the truth. That awareness became a turning point. The future they once feared began to look less frightening than the future in which you were permanently absent. Stay till the end, because their decision involves more than contacting you. There is a practical step connected to it. Something in their environment, schedule, priorities, or existing plans may soon change. They have been thinking about creating space for you in a way that would be difficult to reverse. This may involve ending an old pattern, stepping away from an influence, changing a commitment, or finally confronting someone whose opinion has controlled them for too long. This is why the choice has remained hidden. They know that once this step becomes visible, questions will follow. People may be shocked. Someone may try to convince them to reconsider. There may be a person who thought your soulmate would never challenge the arrangement already in place. But your soulmate has reached a point where pretending has become impossible. They are tired of living divided. One part of them has been performing the life others expected. Another part has been quietly longing for emotional truth. The tension between those two selves has grown unbearable. Your connection became the place where that inner conflict could no longer remain hidden. You represented the path their heart wanted, while fear represented the path they kept choosing. But fear is losing its influence. Not all at once. Courage rarely arrives as a loud, perfect certainty. Sometimes courage is a trembling hand reaching for the phone. Sometimes it is a difficult conversation rehearsed 100 times. Sometimes it is choosing one honest sentence instead of another season of silence. Your soulmate is moving through that process now. They are imagining what they would say if you stood before them. They are wondering whether you would believe them. They are thinking about the questions you might ask, and they know some answers will be difficult. There are things they have not explained. There are feelings they concealed, decisions they delayed, and moments when they chose avoidance over vulnerability. Yet they no longer want the story between you to be defined only by what they failed to do. They want a new chapter, but they understand they cannot simply enter it as though nothing happened. They must acknowledge the past. They must show you that their choice is not another temporary emotional wave. They must prove that they are prepared to stand beside what they say, even when it becomes uncomfortable. This is the unseen preparation heaven is revealing to you. The archangel who stands near this connection is not bringing a message of fantasy but one of discernment. Watch actions. Protect your peace. Remain open without abandoning your wisdom. You do not need to force what is already being moved into alignment. The decision your soulmate has made will create its own momentum, and soon the hidden part of this story will begin to surface. You may even feel it before you see it. Dreams may become vivid. Memories may return without warning. Your intuition may sense that a conversation is approaching. But do not allow anticipation to pull you out of the present. The strongest position you can hold is not anxious waiting. It is grounded self-respect. Your soulmate is not being drawn back to the version of you who overextended, overexplained, or accepted confusion. They are being drawn toward the version of you who now understands that love and dignity must exist together. Your growth has changed the terms of the connection. They can no longer approach you with half-truths and expect the same response. They know this. That is why their next move has required so much thought. They are trying to decide how much to reveal at once. There is one truth in particular that they have guarded carefully. It is connected to the exact moment their decision became final. Something happened, something they heard, saw, or discovered, that made them realize time was no longer on their side. It may have involved another person asking about you. It may have been the possibility that someone new could enter your life. It may have been a message they almost sent, followed by a sign that struck them with unusual force. Whatever occurred, it shattered their illusion that they could continue waiting without consequence. For the first time, they pictured someone else receiving the love they had been too afraid to claim. That image changed them. They imagined another person being present for your laughter, your tenderness, your loyalty, and the quiet way you care. They imagined hearing that you had found peace with someone who did not make you question where you stood. And instead of feeling mild jealousy, they felt a deep wave of clarity. They understood that their hesitation was not protecting them. It was preparing a future they did not want. In that moment, the choice became real. They decided they would no longer allow fear, pride, or outside voices to make the decision for them. They chose to move toward the truth of this connection. But there is a detail you do not yet know. Their decision may involve a sacrifice. Something they are prepared to release because they finally understand what it has been costing them. This could be an old identity. A commitment made from obligation. A connection that has already lost its emotional meaning. A plan that looked secure but felt spiritually empty. They are preparing to step away from something people assumed they would never question. And when they do, your name may be part of the explanation. Not as an excuse. Not as someone to blame. But as the person who awakened them to the truth they had been avoiding. Your soulmate may finally admit that meeting you changed how they understand love. They may confess that even when they tried to dismiss the connection, it continued shaping their choices. They may reveal that their greatest fear was never loving you. Their greatest fear was loving you enough to change their entire life. My child, this is why you must remain centered. The revelation approaching you may be emotionally powerful, but you are not being prepared to lose control. You are being prepared to listen clearly. There may be apologies. There may be confessions. There may be words you once prayed to hear. But heaven asks you to notice not only what is said, but what has truly changed. Your soulmate is standing at the edge of action. They have already made the inner choice, yet one final obstacle remains. It is not another person in the way you might assume. It is the fear of how you will respond when you learn the complete truth. They are worried that what they reveal may come too late. They are afraid you will see their delay as proof that the connection was never important. They do not know that you may have felt their struggle all along. Still, they must speak. The silence has reached its ending. The path before them has narrowed. They can either return to the familiar life that has been slowly draining them, or they can take the step that no one around them expects. They have chosen the second path. But the most shocking part is not that they chose you. The most shocking part is what they have already set in motion to prove it. There is a conversation planned. There is a boundary they are preparing to draw. There is something they may be ready to leave behind. And there is a message connected to you that has been written in their heart long before it appears on your screen. Do not skip what comes next, because the first words they intend to say will not be the words you expect. They are not beginning with a simple confession of love. They are beginning with an admission about the real reason they pulled away, the person who influenced their silence, and the private promise they recently made when they believed they had already lost you. And when that promise is revealed, you will finally understand why heaven led you to this message before their choice became visible to the world.